So we have about, this was the first two keynotes. We have about 3 conference rooms. Depending on your area of interest, you can decide to choose which technical sessions you want to attend. But there are a lot of interesting sessions happening in this hall also. So just like to invite Ayushman Barua, my colleague, to take over the proceedings and invite the next speaker. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. Now that the keynotes are done, I would like to welcome you once again to Cloud Connect 2012 in hall number 1. I am Ayushman Barua, journalist with Information Week magazine, part of UBM Group. You know what, as an IT journalist over the past few years, I perhaps haven't seen a single company that has not spoken about cloud in some way or the other. Each company is at some stage in their journey towards the cloud. Therefore, today we have with us N. Nataraj, CIO and Senior Vice President, Hexaware Technologies. His topic is Cloud Lessons from the Trenches, Our Journey to the Cloud. Join this peer keynote and soak in a pragmatic learning from Hexaware's journey to the cloud. Learn firsthand from N. Nataraj about effective use of data center-wide virtualization, efficient usage of remote management tools, and the subsequent reduction in data center space and energy consumption by nearly a half. Hexaware's cloud journey has resulted in reduction of nearly 2.7 million pounds of carbon and a positive environmental impact. You'll find several useful pieces from this lesson and that you can implement in your organization's cloud journey and go back inspired. May I welcome N. Nataraj.
Very good morning to all of you. Am I audible? Okay. So I'm not going to talk, I think, more on the cloud in detail, because I'm sure that today you go to any of the conferences, you hear about it. But what I'm going to talk about, I think, how did we use these technologies, I think, to gain momentum within our IT, and then what it translated and got benefited from the overall financial and then technology angle. Just to recap, I think, what is about the cloud and what is happening the worldwide. If you go to any of the Google and just talk about the outsourcing, virtualization and cloud, you'll be seeing that virtualization and cloud today attract more of the searches, right? I think the number of the hits that actually goes to these two particular technology component is much larger than today anything, which I think some part of the time the outsourcing used to be, I think, that kind of the hits which used to get it earlier from the worldwide stuff. So how many of you know about the cloud? Can you just raise your hands? What we are, okay. And how many of you has gone through this Stratus, Alto Stratus, Cirrus and Simulus? Can you raise your hands? Yes. So that means, though we are talking about the cloud, so this is not the cloud computing. Actually, this is the real cloud, which is the session of the meteorological department and a session on the nepology. I'm not the nepologist, but this is what actually the cloud means. I just thought I'll just bring some humorous part of it, and we have nothing to do with this cloud. Okay, just wanted to clear that out. Okay, so what is the cloud computing? So self-service, probably I think, which is we can go and do that ourselves, whether it's a computing or data or whatever it is. Or do you remember Hotmail? So that means, have you worried about, I think, where the data is stored? Have you worried about the Facebook or Picasso where I think the data is stored? The answer is no. Okay, because many of, I think, internal IT or even the users or even the administrators ask, I don't see where my servers and data centers are, and that makes me worry. So I think if you have been using this Picasso, Facebook, or probably the Hotmail and Yahoo Group or Google Docs and the searches, then that doesn't bother you. I'm sure that even, I think, your data and computing infrastructure lying in somewhere in the data or private cloud and public cloud should not bother you, because this is more reliable. And then probably, I think, there are so much of the redundancy and the technology components has been built into that, which should not worry you at all while executing your computing infrastructure. In terms of the history, I just wanted to tell you this cloud computing in terms of the theory is not new. This is, I think, way back in 1960s, John McCarthy has talked about this in his own book. And then in the 1960s, the Douglas Parkhill has come out with a book called The Challenge of the Computer Utility, where he compared the cloud computing with the electricity. The way I think the community and then cloud computing, the natural way of private and public association, which is we are calling as a public, private, and community cloud kind of a thing, which was available even during that 1966. And there is one more thing, where is it Herb Grosh, I think you would have known more as the Grosh law, and he talked about that entire, basically, the computing can be run by the dumb terminals based out of the 15 large data centers. I'm talking about these are all the times when 1960s or 1950s, to that extent, what we are talking about today, the cloud, is we are not something innovating new and then saying that, okay, this is what I think we have come out with in the current era. So that means these are all the principles which were there earlier. What we are trying to see is we are trying to provision in such a way that we are creating a, I think, shape to what we have been talking it earlier. In terms of the ecosystem, so I think anything can be connected to the cloud, whether it's a code or app. In today's, even the devices like air condition, all those things, wherever there is an IP devices, I think mobile devices, I think that can be, I think, connected to the cloud. In terms of the Gartner hype cycle, I think you have seen this cycle a lot. This is to reinstate that, I think, I think where that Amazon and all other stuff has gained momentum in the beginning. But today, most of the CIOs today are talking about the private cloud. I think those were when they were resisting it to implement inside their organization. Today, I think most of the organizations are talking about implementing their own private cloud. So when we went out with our own private cloud, so I think we went with the complete the blueprint in terms of what should be the tactical, what should be the strategic, in terms of the SaaS and the external cloud. And then I think though some of them we would have implemented in, say, stage 1 and stage 2, and some of them we would have implemented in stage 3 and stage 4. So to that extent, what I'm trying to emphasize here is you might wanted to have a larger roadmap, and then out of that, I think you might wanted to choose few, I think, which you wanted to do it 1, 2, 3, 4. It is highly impossible that I think it's not a tailor-made option for you that you buy some component, I think, from the vendors and then just implement it and then you are cloud ready. So unless or until you come out with your own strategy, so nothing is going to work. So this is what I think we had first, our deployment strategy. We call, I think, our cloud as a rainmaker. And then again, when we, I think, termed out a rainmaker, the simple theory was anything without the business value has no meaning. To that extent, for the cloud, what is the business value? The business value is the rain. So we termed our cloud as a rainmaker, and we started canvassing this insight, think that what we do has really gained a momentum. And today, I can tell you, today all application, including ERP, CRM, I think is on the cloud. So today we don't have any single physical server per se. To that extent, I think we have transitioned almost 95% of our, I think, application and infrastructure on the cloud. In terms of the typically the cloud objectives, there are 3 typical cloud objectives. One is the infrastructure and application that I don't have to tell. There are, I think, people who have been talking in my previous speaker. But what I wanted to emphasize here, this alone will not basically leave you to the standardization. What is very also important is the organizational process. I think that cuts across your infrastructure and application. Because when you go to the cloud, you will see that there will be typically a lot of issues. When we came out with, we saw this, the building blocks, like you have a network storage, you have a hypervisor, and you have a basically application, and you have browser. So when we transition to the cloud, which is I think the left-hand side of your thing, we transition to the cloud as a rainmaker, where all these 3, I think the building blocks, I think has come out with clearly the IaaS, platform as a services, and an application as a services. Why you have to differentiate these building blocks? Today, from the infrastructure side, you might not have something, but from your application standpoint, you might be ready. Or the vice versa. Probably you might not be ready on the application side, but from the infrastructure, you would be ready. So divide these building blocks very clearly so that one should not become the bottleneck of the other. So that you can, while talking about the evaluation of your cloud strategy, you will not think about the bottleneck. Today, suppose if your application today is not supporting the SaaS, I'm just taking a CRM application, go to the salesforce.com kind of a thing, have a tie-up, and then implement that. And then when you are ready, you can always bring back to your application, I think, portfolio. What I'm talking about, have these three demarcations very clearly inside your organization so that I think that gels well with your the whole story of cloud. In terms of the virtualized infrastructure that we did, it's a very interesting phenomenon. I think one thing that we did out of this cloud is the measurement and metrics, which we were never doing it earlier. For simple thing, right? For example, there were, I think, the computing infrastructure were available, I think, well within the organization in the silos. But when we move it to the cloud, right? So that means it is available across in the single computing environment, though I think there is a building blocks being built. So whenever something which is freed up, right? So that means it is clearly visible to the IT folks, and they can basically have given that particular part to the project which is in a need. So that actually helped us. For example, if I really see it, when we started in the phase 1, I think got the requirement of 30 terabyte from all the projects because we wanted to go slow in the projects, right? But actual usage is even the less 50%, though dedicatedly, I think all the project thought they are getting what they are asking. But in general, net, the use was less than 50% from the overall computing storage. To that extent, I can plan that 50% which was available in a pool, I think in such a way that the more projects can be extended at the same time. When it hits the 70% of basically your overall capacity, then you can go plan and buy something more. To that extent, within the same infrastructure, you can serve many more customers within. So to that extent, you can have I think, a budget check. At the same time, you can, I think, fulfill your customer requirement. So just we did a study after the deployment and before the deployment. Typically, it is seen the infrastructure maintenance has been reduced to the 30% from 42%. Application maintenance from 30% to the 15%. So whatever that the reduction which happened, the budget has been constant. Our budget has not been increasing for a while, right? But at the same time, how do we innovatively do in such a way that we save somewhere, and then whatever the savings that we get, we use for the innovation. So that reinvest it in the IT so that you can get a better ROI tomorrow from the IT perspective. In terms of the challenge phase, it is not simple, though I think it might sound very easy, but you might have to go through your own experiences. I think such presentation at least will tell how did we plan. I think that will give you, open up some amount of the thought process while you're defining it. But in terms of the challenge, even the Amazon, the cloud was down. The Skype had I think the failure last year, right? And then also the Google, which is known in terms of there were failure in the 2009 on the Gmail. So to that extent, yes, I think having a redundancy so far been built, there still is a failure. To that extent, you really need to see that when you are implementing, you I think wanted to make sure that everything is not the single basket, so that you follow and plan your redundancy well in advance. In terms of the future trend, so data center today, the action is on the private cloud, as I talk about. Even that is clearly visible in the Gartner hype cycle, where the private cloud is been gaining momentum. I'm not even talking about the Asia Pac. I'm also talking about the overall worldwide market. In terms of the data being centralized, big data is going to play a big role. Probably, I think, end of the presentation, I will show you one, typically the video that will talk about, I think, how the analytics and then data can be used and misused. Okay. Cloud adoption is accelerating. In terms of, I think, there's one more slide. I think you loaded the wrong slides. were a couple of case studies which I thought I'll give you. Yeah, in terms of the layer, actually, if you really see, I think when you plan, please, I think plan this layer very carefully, because this is a 5-layer approach. It starts from the infrastructure to the virtualization to the administration, and every, I think, building block which is presented here, it has a unique importance. For example, I think many of the things when after basically the second layer, which is a virtualization layer, you will find that unless or until you put a templates, you put a provisioning, you put a automated stuff, I think then it would look like a more of the data center consolidation. It's not a cloud part of it. Make sure that your administration orchestration layer is pretty important, and then should stitch to very well stitch to the virtualization infrastructure. Fourth layer, which is the governance layer, again the review of the licenses. Typically, because it takes a 10 minutes to load one Oracle instances or probably the SQL instances, please be aware. So it doesn't mean that you can load it just without even complying the licenses policy. You might have to check the OEMs that what kind of a number of the licenses we have with your SAM, and then make sure that I think you configure. So to some extent, when you do a self-service and all those stuff, there has been, I think I have seen a couple of organizations worldwide where I think they have given to the user, and then I think a couple of the projects where so many, I think the instances has been created where the license in the central pool is not available to that extent. So it's very important from the governance perspective to make sure that you have a check on the entire process while you're talking about the provisioning, self-provisioning, and then template and so on. And then again, the interface layer, how basically you are creating a self-portal so that you have finally the check, I think when it goes to the approval process. So make sure that, I think usually it used to take a 6 weeks time, right? But now it has been reduced to the 2 hours and even the 10 minutes to create instances. But make sure that you don't shortcut those approval process while taking the project directors and then I think the business approvals, so that people should not think though the infrastructure is available, but that can be given to any part of the time to anyone. So it has to be justified from the business point of view. Why do you need that? And I think, and when do you need that? In terms of I think the phase 2 approach is, I think we started from 1:15, but now we are basically in the matured phase. We have, I think, physical to the virtualized is 1:28. So that means in the one of the project basically where we are using 268 servers, we have, I think, the 10 physical nodes. So that means you can really talk about that how much we have saved in terms of the power, because it typically the way it works out, I think if you buy a server, $8 you pay per maintenance per server per month, right? And then 29 cents you pay towards the power. $1,000 I think you pay on the per square feet basis, right? So which is a data center, and $40,000 typically you pay on the rack space basis. So if you really do a computation, you will see that I think gaining a 40 to 50% saving in 60% saving is not a difficult task to achieve, because you are reducing the size. See that in earlier, if the 268 server has to be there in one room, how much big space that you need, how many administrators that you need, how many parts that you need to do, and then what kind of AMC that would go and sign in. I think then calculate in a way where you have been reduced to the 10 servers. How easy to compute. Definitely, there is a green calculator available. The moment you virtualize, then you can put those things and see that what kind of the carbon energy that and all you have saved. So this is what typically I have explained it about a lot. So this is a very important slide. I think we, in fact, also I presented this to the board. Typically, the one server take a $31,000. They kind of, and also it depends upon the kind of a usage that you need or the project that you need to be deployed. But however, I think our Rainmaker, which is our private cloud, after the implementation, it takes $0.08 per hour. So that means it becomes so seamless. I think you straight away, you will see that the 70 to 80% I think reduction happens here. In terms of the cloud, it's not about tomorrow. It is, I think, achieving massive market scale across industry today. So that means with the infrastructure platform and software. It is very well, it's very well, I think, kicked off in various IT community. In terms of the challenge, I think today we have a separate challenge. In fact, this challenge we used to have earlier also. Business needs on the IT is something which is different from what IT wants to give to the business. This is what it is to be. Always there used to be gap. The gap is the budget. I want, and then they say that, hey, project manager, I wanted to give everything to you, but I don't have a budget. Right? This is what typically, if you can get me the budget from the CFO, you ask me, I will give you. I think I am the facilitator. This is what typically I think we have been giving the answer to our earlier business folks. But now things are been changing. If they come to you saying that I need this much computation power, and then say that, no, I don't have a budget, why don't you give me approval? They will go to the Amazon saying that this is available for this hour. So to that extent, not only you will lose the confidence, but also you will lose the, I think, control from your thing. So better, I think, look at it, the strategy from that point of view. I think where I'm even talking about, there are, I think, the world, I think, top 3 organizations, top 3 or 4 organizations, in fact, without taking the name. IT has been restricting for them not to use the Mac and all. And they finally, I think, some of the developers started, I think, taking inside the Mac, inside their premises. They said that whosoever is bringing the Mac or something which is a non-standard devices, we will not support, IT will not support. After that, I think the 4-5 years, they figured out 40% of the employees are, I think, using such devices where they say that I don't need an IT support. I'm sure that, I think, as a CIO, as an administrator, you don't want to get into that where the control has been, I think, taken by the individual user or probably some business group. So to that extent, the challenge is the difference between what basically business expects and what IT delivers today is the budget. So to make sure that, I think, if the answer is cloud, to think about the cloud. This is the cloud adoption process. I think I'll give you the data. 2009, I think the adoption was 22%. And the 2010, it's the 44%. And today, 55% of the organization, this is the APAC data from the Forrester, where they're talking about the utilization. I think either the company wanted to think seriously on the cloud or probably transition to the cloud. In terms of the devices, these are all the devices which is today not only, I think, user expectations that, I think, on the computing environment, but also these devices are basically driving out today the enterprise. Earlier, the enterprise used to divide the consumerization. Today, the consumerization is driving the enterprise. That is the one key change that has happened, right? Where I think your chairman or someone, the leader, brings the iPad saying that, can I use it? The moment they use it, they will not stop with the email. They wanted to do the computing infrastructure. You tend to see that, how do I basically give them the extension of my application of the iPad? That's where I think the consumerization is driving IT today. So I think it is the time, I think, we understand this and then bridge the gap. It may not be possible to take out everything and porting to these small and mobile devices, but please have a plan. It's accelerating. I'll give you the 3 examples typically in terms of the agility. The New York Times, I think when it happened, they wanted to do a digitized for one particular stuff where they approached IT, and IT came out with a $100,000 budget and then months of the duration, where they went into the AWS, which is Amazon server within the Hadoop. They created in in 2 days, and then the money they spent, the business unit spent is the $240. So where is the $100,000 and where is the $240 for some one function to exit? So this is what typically is happening. If the IT is not agile, you will see that you will lose control. Second one is the elasticity. There is the Grand Slam. This is an ad, Super Bowl ad, where when it came out, there was a hit of the 60 million, I think, hits per day, right? So if your computing infrastructure is not be able to take care of that particular load, you might want to see that at particular point of the time where you need a little bit elasticity, whether you want to adopt a cloud strategy. Typically, this is a Fortune 500 client. Again, I think the IT needed, I think, some more time and $31,000, but typically, I think business solution didn't have that kind of a budget, but at the same time, they needed to execute. They went to the public cloud and then were able to execute, I think, what actually is well within the budget. All 3 examples, I think, belonging to the, I think, Fortune 500 clients. Please, I think, look at it, the kind of a trend which has been changing. That's what I'm talking about. Please look at it, what basically the IT needs are, and then what is expected out of the delivery. My final thoughts: understand major market disruptions, focus on the true value of IT, and then expect improved transparency to drive efficiency and competition. Value delivering is the key, and it's very important that how do we support our business user. So these are all the things which I think we got it. I think while implementing the cutting edge technology, we were very earlier adopters. In fact, when I took back this CIO in 2009 mid, where it was a recession, I thought, I think I will take up this job. And I think surprisingly, I also came to know, I think my earlier predecessor was a forced exit. To that extent, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know, because after a week joining, I came to know that this was the case. And then as part of my plan, I went for the 2 weeks holiday. The 2 weeks holiday, I think it was I really wanted to figure out, I think, how do I want to establish myself well within the organization. I also, I think, look around the couple of books, which is Michael Watkins, which is a quite famous days. I think how many of you read the first 90 days, right? How do you want to do that? I did go through, but it's pretty much laborious. And then I came across the joke also, which I thought which is saying that in the short term, you can achieve this thing that can survive you for 1 year to 1.5 years. I think that what is that? So that talked about the 3 envelope story, where I think predecessor is handing over 3 envelopes to the successor, saying that please utilize it whenever you are in a need. So that means, okay, so when that CIO took over, then he said that I don't need that because I know many of those things. But when he had a 3 months of stint, he realized that I think surviving in an organization is very difficult, what he should do. Then he opened the first envelope. He remembered that how I think his predecessor has given. The first envelope talked about blame the predecessor. So he started blaming the predecessor, saying that whatever that guy did, nothing worked and all those things. So that actually worked for 6 months to 7 months. But fundamentally, nothing is being changed. He again landed into the same problem. After that, the second envelope opened. It talked about reorganize, change vertical, horizontal, change your organization structure and announce. He did the same thing. It worked for another 6 months, because any organization structure change, it takes typically 6 months to 8 months. But after that, he again led into the problem, because there is no thing like cloud is being implemented, new technology components. He again led into the problem, and he said that, oh, this guy seems to be knowing very well about this organization. Let me open the third envelope. The third envelope is in, my dear friend, time has come to leave, and then I think, and then build 3 envelopes for your successor. So to that extent, I want you guys to be alert. So today, I think CIO roles are changing. They have been more, I think, going towards the cloud integration officer from the cloud innovation, I think chief innovation officer. Please understand the need of an hour. It is very important that we take away some few things, I think, out of this Cloud Connect event, and then probably go back and then rework out, because as I said, there is nothing called tailor-made. You need to do that your own way. But at the same time, these are all the building blocks which will help you to, I think, to streamline your process. With that, I thank you very much, and it's to be a pleasure to be here. I'll just run one video which talks about how basically this big data and analytics is basically can change the world. Thanks a lot, and then thanks for calling me here. Yeah, video.
Pizza Palace, guaranteed hot in 30 minutes or it's free. This is Mary. May I take your order?
Hi, Mary. Yes, I'd like to order.
Is this Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you for calling again, sir. I show your national identification number is 610-204-999-8-45-54610. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I see you live at 736 Montrose Court, but you're calling from your cell phone. Are you at home?
I'm just leaving work, but I'm...
Oh, we can deliver to Bob's Auto Supply. That's at 175 Lincoln Avenue, yes?
No, I'm on my way home. How do you know all this stuff?
We just got wired into the system, sir.
Oh, well, I'd like to order a couple of your double meat special pizzas.
Sure thing. There'll be a new $20 charge for those, sir.
What do you mean?
Sir, the system shows me that your medical records indicate that you have high blood pressure and extremely high cholesterol. Luckily, we have a new agreement with your national health care provider that allows us to sell you double meat pies as long as you agree to waive all future claims of liability.
What?
Do you agree, sir? You can sign the form when we deliver, but there is a charge for processing. The total is $67 even.
$67?
Well, that includes the delivery surcharge of $15 to cover the added risk to our driver of traveling through an orange zone.
I live in an orange zone?
Now you do. Looks like there was another robbery on Montrose yesterday. You could save $48 if you ordered our special Sprout Submarine Combo and picked it up yourself. Comes with tofu sticks. Those are very tasty, sir. Good value, too.
But I want double meat.
Well, I'm sure you can afford the $67 then. You just bought those tickets to Hawaii. They weren't cheap, eh? Oh, but I see you checked out the budget beach bum at the library last week. Up to you, sir.
All right, all right. I'll get the Sprout subs.
Good choice, sir. Gotta watch that waist if you're hitting the beach, eh? 42 inches. Wow. Man, I'd say tofu and sprouts is like required.
That's how much?
Just between you and me, there's a $3 off coupon in this month's Total Men's Fitness magazine. Your wife Betty subscribes to that, right? Anyhow, clip that and it's $19.99 even. Whoa, looks like you maxed out on all your credit cards. Bring cash, okay?
Want to stop this from happening?
So thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful talk and demo. I'm afraid we'll not be able to take questions because Mr. Nataraj has to take a urgent flight now. Or he says we can just take one or two quickly, maybe. So we open the floor open to Q&A. Yeah, we have there one. Go ahead. Can I have the mics there, please?
Hi, my name is Sriram. You talked about planning for redundancy when it comes to cloud implementation. So can you share quickly, what did you do to plan for redundancy, or you went for multiple vendors or things like that?
See, I think when I talk about the redundancy not only from the vendor perspective, because the cloud actually revolves around the data center. To be, you also need to have a, for example, when you're talking about your storage, your equipment, make sure that only one location should not be the bottleneck. When we started this journey, we started with our Chennai Development Center. Today, the cloud spans across our Mumbai as well as the Mexico Development Center. So that means we don't do any of the, the investment which is per se the redundant, which I'm calling, I think parallelly this is a load balance where we're using a computing technology from Mexico as well as Mumbai parallelly, but at the same time that can take a load whenever there is a, the catastrophic failure or so on. So make sure that when you're designing the cloud, because in the cloud means it's not a data center consolidation. The application and the infrastructure should work seamlessly across, take a complete computing power across your organization. There's a difference between what consolidation and what basically cloud computing is.
Yeah, Mr. Nataraj, I'm Pamela Kumar from IBM.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for an extremely insightful talk. It was very impressive.
Thank you.
My question here is about the choices that you made, the evaluation that you did in terms of your infrastructure, and so when you decided to do a cloud implementation, how much of the existing infrastructure did you migrate to this, and how much did you bring in, throw out and bring in new, and as you were making those decisions, what were the key parameters that you compared across various vendors for your options for infrastructure? And
Sure.
the second question is the famous CapEx versus OpEx story. Did you do a comparison of what if you went completely to a cloud service provider and just provided the front end of enterprise level, security, resiliency, whatever?
Sure.
Those are basically the two questions.
It's a very good question. I think the first question to answer you, the end of the 2008, which is typically I said that I took over when there's a recession. Also that helped me, sticking to the job because some of the decisions that I have taken. Really see, I think many of the organization, only looking at the operationally at that part of the time from the cost efficiency angle. To that extent, many of the, I think, multiple places or offices has been cutting down and then been moving to either to the campuses and then consolidating stuff. To answer you, that couple of, I think one of the best things which actually worked out in my favor that time while planning, when I said that the most of the, I think, the computing infrastructure already been, I think, covered the end of life type, typically to 4 years to the 5 years and from there. So whichever basically had, I think, well within the 3 years where I could not, I think, make them redundant, I probably make them discarded. I made them make sure that they run to the stage 2 until stage 2 and stage 3. So when I planned out, so that means I took a complete infrastructure which is reusable components was 40%, which is typically I planned in stage 2 and stage 3. When these things will come out of the, I think, support and stuff, that is the time I think I will change over them to the newer stuff. When I built it, the seed, for example, it started with, say, 7 physical servers, and then you say that 28 to 15 virtual servers per machine. So I built the capacity and then proven them in terms of to the board as well as to the CFO, where with a little bit of the investment and then also the saving, not only that I think end up saving the manpower, but also in terms of the deployment cost and so on. So that is the future trend. So when I went to the phase 2 and phase 3, my I think allocation of the budget was much more easier because I could talk in terms of the revenues and I think savings and dollars, because that could clearly map out from the kind of a templates that you would have deployed during the cloud process. Second thing, which is a capex versus opex. To that extent, I think most of it I have built a private cloud, except few things, which is if you are the long player and you are, we are organization of 10,000 plus people and then present in 32 countries. Definitely, I think some of those things going through the OPEX way, typically when I buy, for example, if I go and do that, the analysis, I've just taken out few Amazon and few basically data center where I think the project will not last more than 6 months, right? So that means where, for example, I've been implementing some of the things, cutting edge technologies, need for an hour for a project, but at the same time has no long rope for me to invest in the budget. Those projects I made sure that I don't invest myself. So I use the strategy, the OPEX strategy, though I might be spending per month. If I would have spanned out for 4 years where I would have invested in my own computing, my cost would be less, but at the same time, I don't see the need beyond the 6 months. To that extent, it doesn't matter, the monthly cost for the 5 years, because the 5 years don't exist here. So I took a decision, some of the things which is a short term, to go to the cloud in the OPEX way, and the long term and the CAPEX way, so that my, I think, operation and budget eased out in the over a period of years. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Probably I think I can take it offline. I think I probably will leave my email ID and things to them, and I'm sure that if any point of the time you wanted to see my cloud computing infrastructure, how does that actually span across the 3 centers, from the Lively, from the Mexico to the Mumbai to Chennai, you are almost welcome. I think the Srikanth and all these folks knows me well. I think please drop me a mail. I'll be more than happy to take my journey through the cloud. Thanks a lot listening again. Bye.
May I request, sir, to please accept a small token of our appreciation. Yeah.